I'm Stephanie Jordan. I'm the local food program manager at Sustainable Solano. Welcome to our winter fruits class. As many of you know, this is one of many classes that we are doing to feature and talk about specialty crops that are grown around Solano County by our local farmers. And we're going to be doing these classes from now until roughly March or April of 2022, maybe even longer. We're trying to get a little extension going on for this. And as you can see, I have a new camera, so now you can see more of my cluttered kitchen. But I think the lighting's a little better, so kudos to my husband for buying this new camera. All right, so we're going through 3 recipes today, and I've got Allison, our communications manager, also from Sustainable Solano, with me on the background to help with some tech support. Let's see, what should we do first? We are going to start with the citrus salad with Star Anise, and I'm going to get the syrup going on that one. And then I'm going to jump over to the Prosciutto-Wrapped Persimmons, then we're going to go back to the citrus salad, and then we're going to go over to our roasted pear salad. So Allison, if you could go ahead and share the recipes really quick. I see she's bringing more people into the meeting. Everybody's getting kind of settled. But whenever you have a chance, we're gonna look at those. Get my first thing out here. Okay, so here is, yes, this is what we're gonna do the first step on this one first. So this is a super easy salad. I think it is a wonderful option for brunch. It has just a little twist on your basic, salad with oranges and grapefruit and other citrus items. But the Star Anise really has a great flavor profile that coordinates well with the citrus. So I am today using grapefruit and some navel oranges that were kind of still hanging on to my tree. So I'm hoping they're okay. I tried to get some Caracara oranges and some blood oranges, which also would give it a really nice color, but I just couldn't get my hands on those. So we're going to work with these that I have. So step 1 is we're going to make our Star Anise syrup. So I have in a little saucepan here about 1/3 of a cup of water. And this is a simple syrup, which means it's equal parts water and sugar. So I'm going to add to that 1/3 of a cup of sugar. Got a little short there. All right, I'm just going to give that a swirl. And we are also going to, I'm going to kind of get this going on the stovetop and get the sugar dissolved. And then we're going to add the Star Anise. And so I have a picture of that, which I'm also going to have Allison share. Because some of you may not be familiar with this. It's kind of an oddball spice. It's put into some Asian cuisine. It's used in, like, for example, Vietnamese pho soup has it in it. It has a little bit of a licoricey flavor to it. So you can see there's like an outer shell part, and then there's these little like round, they look like little seeds inside the pod. And you just throw the whole thing into your syrup. So I have some whole ones here, that are brand new. You can see it's kind of this nice little star shape, where it gets its name. But I also have kind of some leftover ones that are kind of crumbled apart. So I'm just going to use the crumbled apart ones just to use those up, because this is roughly equivalent to about 3, I would say, crumbled. All right, so I want my sugar to get a little bit dissolved before I add my Star Anise, and then we will let that steep for about 20 to 30 minutes, because I really want the flavor of the Star Anise to go into the syrup. This is probably going to make a little bit more than what I really need, but that's okay, because I'm just going to make about a half version of this recipe. I think what's on the website will be like 5 grapefruit and 4 oranges. I'm just going to do roughly half of that for the purpose of this class and in the interest of time. So I'm going to go ahead and dump this in. It's now simmering over here. And I'm just going to give it another little stir to make sure my sugar is dissolved. It looks like it's about there. All right, I'm going to go back in another minute and turn that off. And then what we're going to do with the fruit is I'm just going to show you a technique called supreme. And so this is just a way to cut up your citrus so that you don't have any of the peeling or the pit. So we'll move on to that in just a sec. Just want to keep an eye on this over here. Okay, sugar has dissolved. So I'm just going to turn off the heat and let that sit there. All right, in my bowl, I have my ruby red grapefruit. One of them is already cut up, and I'm gonna do another one for you. Here's my bowl of winter fruits here. All right, so step one is you're gonna locate like the stem end and the bottom end, and you're gonna have it so that the stem is on the right and the other end is on the left, or vice versa. It doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna cut off the ends. I'm gonna cut off like the top and the bottom. And grapefruits are super duper juicy. So I want to use this. So I'm going to squeeze that in there. I'm going to add to my sauce. All right. And then step two is we're going to shave off the outer part of the skin, the zest and the white tip. So I'm just going to go around here, and I have to kind of get on top of it to see underneath. So as I'm going, I'm actually kind of digging in around on the bottom edge of the grapefruit. Something else that's grown in the county, which would be fantastic, are pomelos. I know Eat Well Farm generally has some of those in their CSA boxes, as does Terra Firma Farm. And there's more information about those CSAs on our website. So here I have my kind of shaved off, peeled grapefruit. And now you want to get your bowl right underneath your hand, and you need to have a very sharp knife for this. So I'm just going to go through and I'm going to make little cuts on each side of the little membranes that separate the segments, and then just let the segments drop into my bowl. So you can see here, I'm just kind of going around and dropping some of those in. Okay, and I've already done one grapefruit, so I'm going to shift gears and move to an orange. I'll add the rest of this in later, just so we have a couple colors and you get to see it again. Let's see here, which one looks, this one looks kind of roundish. Okay, so the top and the bottom come off, and then you have a flat surface. Again, we want to use any juice from here. Oops, dropped it in there. Okay, and then you just kind of have to, judging on how thick you see the peeling on top, is kind of how far in you want to take your knife. There's another orange salad that I do a lot of. It's like a Moroccan orange salad where I mix cinnamon in with some orange juice. And then that is part of the vinaigrette. So I've done a lot of this orange segmenting routine. Okay. Let's do this. Okay, so here we go. I did actually just sharpen my knife before class. I knew this would be happening. So don't try to do this with a dull knife. It won't work well. And also a dull knife is not as safe. This one is just like falling apart on me here. Got all those segments. All right, I may have to shift and do this on the inside part. This is kind of an old crop orange from my tree, so I think it's not holding together as well. All right, I'm just gonna shave off one last little bit here. Okay, all right, so now I have a couple of colors in my citrus salad. And I'm gonna let that just sit for a minute. We're gonna now, I'm gonna come back to the citrus salad in a second. I'm gonna go now over to the prosciutto-wrapped persimmons. Grab a towel, clean up this juiciness. Okay, so persimmons, here is that recipe. Again, this is very straightforward. This is kind of a simple appetizer kind of a thing. To me, persimmons have a little bit of like a melon flavor to them. And so, you know, that of course goes really well with prosciutto. So I wanted to kind of do this as, you know, just to offer another use of persimmons as opposed to just eating them out of hand. So step one is I'm going to just take the top little leafy part off of the persimmon, like I'm coring it out. So there it is. I'm doing my little compost bucket. And then I'm going to cut these into wedges. So again, I'm using a paring knife, which is a little shorter. So I'm going to make about 8 wedges out of each persimmon. Now, it's up to you. You could peel them if you want at this point, or you can just use them, you know, as is. It depends on the age of your persimmon. So the best ones for this particular recipe, because we're going to throw this in the oven, is to use ones that have been recently picked. Because if you've ever gotten persimmons, you might know that as they sit, they get softer and softer and more mushy and more mushy. They also get more sweet. They get sweeter as they sit. But for this one, we want to use them while they're still a little bit firm. So I'm just going to do like half and half just for fun. I'm going to peel about 4 of these wedges and then leave peel on the other one. Okay, so there's my little wedges. And now let me grab my prosciutto. Okay, throw that over there. Okay, so this is usually, it's very thinly sliced, and there's typically some kind of little divider thing, either a piece of parchment or a little piece of plastic or something that goes between all these slices. And we're gonna just peel off 1 or 2 slices is probably what I need here, just to kind of demonstrate this. All right, so there's my big slice of prosciutto, and I'm just gonna kind of tear it. You know, this doesn't have to be cut exactly or neatly. So I'm just gonna tear it, and it typically does kind of come apart on its own, just from the way that the meat fibers are shaped. So this one's a little long, so I just need it to go around my slice, maybe like, you know, 1.5 times or so. So here it's wrapped, and I'm just going to put this on a little sheet pan which has parchment paper on it. So I highly recommend using the parchment paper. It's going to keep them from sticking to your pan. Okay, so that one, we'll do a couple more. So now this is one of these recipes where you could just wrap them and eat them. And what I find is that if you want the flavor to be more sweet, I feel like you get more sweetness from the persimmon by eating it raw. If you want to have a little more of a salty flavor profile, then you can do this cooking routine that we're doing today. So either way is fine, because prosciutto is it's cured, it's not raw. Okay, that piece is like falling apart. Let's try another little strip here. This is kind of a play on, you know, the bacon wrapped dates, the prosciutto wrapped melon, all of that stuff. Okay, there's that one. I'm going to do one more just so I can use up the rest of this. No, I got room for 6. So what I had here was about 3 ounces of prosciutto. There were a couple pieces missing. Somebody in my family got into it, I think. So, but I'm going to say about 3 ounces is what you'll need for probably about 2 persimmons. All right, I'm just going to put that back together. Okay. This is very oily, fatty. I need to get the fat off my hands. Okay, now I have just a tiny bit of olive oil that I'm going to use to brush the tops of these. And this is just to let the prosciutto crisp up and kind of facilitate that browning process. So just a little tad, and you don't even need to do both sides. I'm just going to kind of do the top, and it'll kind of run over it. And then, you know, the prosciutto is generally salty enough on its own. So I'm just going to add a little bit of black pepper on the top. All right, and these guys are ready to go in. My oven is at about 425, and I have the convection on. So that's pretty hot. I just kind of want to have it in there briefly, really hot temperature, just to give it a little, you know, sizzle on the prosciutto to crisp it up a little bit. The fruit should not get mushy, you know, because it's going to be in there briefly. And again, we're using persimmons that are not, you know, super ripe. Okay, let me clean this up. My little bag. All right, I'm going to give my Star Anise Syrup a little stir over here just to move the seeds around, help with that infusion process. And I'm going to give this, I'm going to swap this out. All right, cutting board number 2. All right, so where are we at here? Syrup, those are in the oven. Okay, I think we're going to do one more step with our citrus salad, which is the pomegranate. So here I am. I believe this is fairly clean. Let me give that a little rinse. All right, so for the pomegranate, I have a big bowl of water. It's about 2/3 of the way full, and this is going to help me with the seed removal of the pomegranate. So I'm going to cut off the top end, and I'll just shave off this bottom, or actually I did it reverse. I did the bottom and then the top stem. They kind of grow like this, upside down on the tree. These came from a neighbor's house, actually. He has a pomegranate tree in his yard. So you can either cut all the way through from top to bottom here, or you could just kind of score around the skin, which might not crush so many of the arils and the seeds. So now I'm going to work over and in. Actually, I'm going to work in my bowl of water. So here I just popped it apart, and then I'm going to separate this with my hands and the pomegranate in the water, and that's going to keep the seeds from flying all over the place, because that's what they like to do when you start to break it apart. And so what's going to happen here is that the seeds are going to sink to the bottom, and the little white membrane parts are going to float, and then it'll make it a little bit easier to separate everything. And I'm just kind of gently like breaking apart these sections and using my thumbs kind of like this to kind of scrape off the seed sections. And so this one's behaving pretty well. I'm not getting too much of the white pith in there. And I don't need a, you know, if you're making a full batch of this recipe, you might want to do your whole entire pomegranate. Depends on how much you and your crowd likes pomegranate. It's really, you know, just to add a little color. And I always think it's festive to do something like this with pomegranates around the holiday time. Okay, there's that. I think that's about at least a quarter of that fruit. A little bunch in there. Beasley, get out of there. So the seeds are actually, you know, these are the seeds, but when people talk about pomegranate arils, the aril is actually the name for the juicy, fleshy fruit part that's around the seed. So the actual seed is inside the aril, but sometimes people use the terms interchangeably. So if someone's talking about the pomegranate aril, they're talking about this whole little seedy part. Okay, I think I have enough there. So I'm going to kind of skim off the white membrane parts. And if you have some white parts that stick to the seeds, you can just kind of slosh it around a little bit, and then they'll eventually kind of come up to the surface. Okay, so now I'm going to strain the pomegranate. And then I'll add it to my salad. I hit the floor. Okay, so there they are. There's my little batch. I'm going to add these in. A couple little bits that didn't quite make it out there, but for the most part, that worked. All right. Okay, so this is on standby here, waiting for the syrup, and then we'll add that. And check the persimmons. They usually don't need a whole lot of time, just enough to kind of crisp up. Oh, there's a little more, another couple minutes there. All right, while we're waiting for that to be done, let's talk about the Actually, no, I'm gonna go ahead and finish this, and then we'll jump over to our pear salad. I'll go ahead and mix this. And depending on your audience, you can use your star anise as a garnish, or maybe not. So, you know, they're not going to be very edible. So you don't want people to eat them, but they are kind of pretty just to put in as a little garnish on your finished salad. So I'm going to go ahead and strain my star anise out, because these are not pretty. These are all crumbled apart anyhow. Okay. All right, so here's my syrup. So this is more than what I need. I did a full batch per the recipe of the syrup, but I did, you know, fewer of the fruit. So I'm just gonna do a little spoonful on top of here, maybe like 2 of these spoons. And that's all there is to that. So again, something that's super easy. Let's see if I can bring it over here now that I have the fancy camera. All right, there it is. And again, you know, the more colors of citrus that you can find for that, the better. It looks really lovely. I really also like the idea of putting blackberries in there, but those are not really in season. But I guess if you have an orange tree or some kind of citrus tree that keeps on going into the spring or even summer, I don't know. I used to have an orange tree that just seemed to never be without oranges. So that's another option. If you want to add some blackberries, I think that the flavor also goes really well with those. Okay, I'm going to check these little persimmons one more time. All right, here's what's happening. I'm going to flip them over. So they're starting to get a little bit dark underneath, which is good. That is caramelization and yumminess from the prosciutto. So I'm just going to flip them over. You can use tongs and not your bare hands. They're a little hot, but I can do it. So, and I'm going to just throw them back in for a little bit longer, because if you can see on the pan, there where the surface of the fruit and the prosciutto were hitting the bottom is where it caramelized really nicely. So we're going to put this back in. It's almost like it's sitting in like a saute pan, because my oven is nice and hot. All right, a couple more minutes there, and then those will be done. Oh, no, you know what? I want to show you something. So the prosciutto-wrapped persimmons are, you know, the idea is sort of like a little appetizer. So I found some cute little bamboo skewer things I had, because we're going to put picks in them. But something else you can do is use rosemary as picks. And so I've pulled these off of a rosemary bush that I have outside my house. And I'm just going to strip off like maybe the bottom, you know, judging on how thick my slices are. I've got maybe like an inch or so here. Actually, I'm going to save that. So I'm just going to strip the leaves off from top to bottom and exposing my little branch here. And then I can just stick this in and use that as a pick. So that'll be my little presentation of the day, presentation trick. Here's my little plate for those. All right, so those are going to be coming out in a minute. Let's talk about the pear salad. So I'm going to cook my fruit again today, cook another type of fruit, I should say. So I really like to use bossed pears for this recipe. I think Allison's pulling it up here. So there's a few parts to this. We've got kind of the salad part, and then we have the vinaigrette, and I'll do it all. For the pears, we're going to drizzle them with honey and put some fresh thyme on them, as well as a little bit of pepper. And we're going to roast those in the oven briefly. And then we'll assemble the rest of the salad and make the vinaigrette, and then put it all together at the end. So that's what that looks like. So step one on this is to get our pears into the oven. So again, I really like to use the bossed pears. These are the brownish ones. These are huge, you can see. If you can't find bossed, then Bartlett pears are another good substitution. But I do like these. They tend to be a little more firm, and they don't get super mushy when you cook them. And so these are probably a little bit underripe. The other ones I have are going to be too ripe. So I thought, let's just go with the underripe ones, since we're going to cook them anyway. So I just kind of cut around planks. This part I get to eat later. So I have my little planks here, and I'm just going to now cut these across into slices so that I've got, you know, this kind of shape going on. Okay. Probably just going to do one for this little demo. All right, and then I have another sheet pan, again with parchment, and I'm going to lay these out in a single layer. The ones that are from the ends, you know, they're going to be sticking up a little, and that's fine. And I'm going to lay them down like so. Okay, and something tells me it's time to get the persimmons out, so let's. Yep, that looks good. Okay. All right, we'll just plate these up, and then we'll go back to our pears. There's one. A little bit of that. You know, toothpicks work too, if you don't want to deal with this kind of thing. Okay, there they are. Guess I can trying to make these arranged so that they're evened out. Okay, there they are, prosciutto-wrapped persimmons. And, you know, I'm kind of like squishing it down, and the fruit is not mushy. So these hold up really well, actually, to being thrown into the oven for a bit. So there's those. Set those over there. All right, back to our pears. Move this. Okay, so here's my boxed pear sliced on my tray, ready to go. And I'm going to drizzle a little honey on top. Grab a little spoon. And then we're going to put the thyme. And a little salt and pepper too. So you don't have to be super neat and tidy here. We're just going to kind of do a little drizzle, drizzle, drizzle across, as long as there's a little bit across the board on all of them. That's kind of all we're looking for, is to add a little sweetness, especially on this one. Depending on the ripeness of your pear, you can adjust the amount of honey to kind of fix it one way or the other. But I just want to have like a little strip across. And some of them are going to have a little more. There's, you know, this honey kind of globs off the spoon, so that's okay. Okay, there's that. Now for the thyme, so you'll have your thyme sprigs that look like this, and I pulled these out of my garden too. Luckily, the stems are kind of sturdy enough where this one is letting me just kind of strip off the leaves. So that's what you want to do. Taking leaves off of thyme sprigs is one of my least favorite culinary tasks. So I'm always really happy when, you know, this plant is such that I can just kind of zip, strip the leaves right off from top to bottom. So I'm holding on to the top, grabbing it here, and just pulling down, and all the little leaves come off. So I have my little bowl here of thyme leaves, and I'm just going to sprinkle that on. And you know, another thing to do with fresh thyme, which would work for this recipe, is, you know, you don't necessarily, I'm just going to throw some whole sprigs on here too, because once it hits the heat, that's going to help facilitate getting the little leaves off of the stem. So I think I got most of them covered here. All right. Now just a little bit of salt and pepper, because the salt is going to help bring out the flavor that naturally exists there in the food, and a little bit of pepper. All right. So my oven is about 400. I'm going to turn it down just a tad after that we had the persimmon thing here. My convection is on. All right, so those are in for a little bit. And now we will look at the other ingredients. Okay, so I'm also going to add some red onion to this salad. So to make my slices, I'm gonna start as though I'm gonna dice it up. And I think a lot of you guys have seen the onion routine here. I'm gonna just shave off the bottom root part just because it looks like it had kind of some dirt on there. So I just want to shave off that root part, but I'm not cutting that whole root off. And then we go top to bottom. And then I have my corner here that I can peel. Get my peeling off. And then what I typically do if I'm just slicing, especially for a salad, you know, I'm not going to need these giant half, you know, onion slices. I'm going to do a couple of cuts from top to bottom. This is kind of a smallish one. I think I'll just do one cut in the middle. So now I've got it split basically from the top to the root. There's a little cut here, which is like all the way through. And then I'm going to turn it this way and just do slices down, and then I'll get some nice little half moon shaped onion slices for the salad. Okay, and that's enough, because again, I'm not going to do a ginormous portion of this. I just want to get a few slices ready here to put onto my salad once I get the greens done and ready to go. Okay, so there's the red onion, and I also like the red onion, adds a little color. You know, I almost always add red onion to my salads, even if there is fruit in it. So that's ready to go. And then the other elements of this are goat cheese and some pecans. So here's my pecans that have already been toasted. You want to put these on a sheet pan, parchment or not, it doesn't matter. Don't add any oil. We just put them dry onto the pan. They go into the oven at about 350 degrees for roughly 10, 15 minutes. It kind of depends on the nut, how big they are. Pine nuts cook very quickly, so you have to keep a very close eye on those. But larger ones like the pecans and the walnuts, you can get away with, you know, 10 or 15 minutes. So these have already been toasted, and they're just here in my little bowl. And then I also have some goat cheese, and so I just pulled off a little bit of goat cheese from a standard log of goat cheese. This is plain, it's not flavored. One trick that you can do if you plate up this salad is if you have your log laying out on your board without the wrapper on, you just kind of want to flip it out and take the wrapper off. Then you can use dental floss to kind of slice through the log like this, and then you'll have, it's a much easier way to get rounds. So that if you want to just, when you're composing the salad, if you just want to put like one round of cheese on somebody's plate, you can do that. I think today I'm just going to crumble a little bit of this on. And I need to rinse this board because that onion is making me cry. Okay, so those are kind of the other components of the salad. My lettuce or greens that I'm using today are some romaine that I got from my CSA box. I think it was terra firma. You can also use spinach, you can use mesclun, you know, any variety, keep it colorful. You know, red leaf lettuce would be beautiful with this as well. You could rip these up into small pieces, but I kind of think I'm going to leave these big. Just, you know, I think it's kind of fun. Let people attack it with their fork and knife and, you know, make them do a little work for their salad. So that's ready to go. And I did the washing in the big bowl and then spun those in my salad spinner. So those are kind of on standby. So those are the main elements that are going to get composed. So now what I'll do is put together the vinaigrette. And let's see, I'm going to use this bowl so you guys can see it a little better. All right, so the first thing I'm going to put in is a shallot, and I'm going to work on all of the water-based ingredients first. So I really just need like maybe a teaspoon or so of shallot, you know, not too much. So this is, I had already cut it apart. This one was not whole, but you know, they look like kind of like a little pinkish, you know, onion at the store, and they're smaller than most other ones. So I'm just going to mince this up into tiny pieces and add that into my vinaigrette bowl. All right, there's that. Okay, next in is some vinegar. So I always used to make this salad for a lot of parties, and there was a vinegar from Trader Joe's that I really like to use in it. Allison has a picture. I found a screenshot of it on Amazon, so I'm going to have her share that. It's a orange muscat vinegar from Trader Joe's. I don't know if Trader Joe's still has it. I have no clue, but Amazon has it, and there it is. So if you guys are interested in trying something new, I recommend it. It works great for fruit-based salads. It has a little bit of sweet built in there, but it's not super, super sweet. Woo, that shallot. Okay. I'm like sensitive today to like the onions and everything. Okay. Maybe that'll help. All right. So we're going to add in some champagne vinegar. I don't have the Trader Joe's. I just have this kind. So we're going to use that. But I'm going to sweeten it up a little bit with a little bit of honey, and I may even use one of my oranges and squeeze in a little bit of orange juice. So, you know, I typically don't even measure when I make this, so I tried to estimate the measurements for your recipe. So I'm going to follow those estimations and see if it actually works, because I typically, when I make vinaigrette, I just kind of do it. But today I'll measure and we'll see if I'm correct. So 3 tablespoons of the vinegar. And we want to add a few drops of Dijon mustard. And the purpose of that is to help the water-based ingredients emulsify with the olive oil. Okay, whoop, that kind of came out fast. So that's, you know, I say a few drops in the recipe. You know, if you want to do like 1/8 of a teaspoon or so, that's kind of what you're going for. It's not a lot. It's just a little something to put in there to help with the emulsification process. All right, I'm going to give that a little whisk. And I think I am going to add orange juice. So here we go, deviating from the recipe, but why not? My juicer thing. And these oranges actually looked kind of decent. My poor tree is not doing well, but I found a couple from the old crop. Okay, so you can see, you want to make a mental note here, juice of 1 orange. All right. So depending on how sweet that orange is going to kind of dictate how much honey I add. And I'm not sure how much really I need until I taste it. But there's a little bit left on this spoon. So I'm going to put that in there and let it soak a little bit and see if I need more. So we'll see. This is one of these taste as you go kind of things. All right, so I have that and that and that. Honey, yeah. I'm going to add some salt and pepper in a minute, but I want to check my pears over here. Okay, they're looking good. The honey is kind of darkening a little bit. And what I want to do is just stick, I'll use this paring knife. I'm just going to poke it a little bit. You know, I don't want it to be mush, but I want it to be soft enough so that, you know, people can eat it. And again, this pear was not fully ripe at all. So I'm going to throw it back in just for a little bit longer. The other thing that's happening on there is that the skin is starting to kind of pull in a little bit, and some of them where you had kind of that end where I cut is starting to curl just a tad. So that's all fine and good. I'm gonna let it maybe another like 4 or 5 minutes and then pull them out. Okay, so I've got my vinegars and my juices and everything in here. And next is salt and pepper. And this is kosher salt, so I'm just going to do a couple of generous pinches there. And some fresh ground pepper. You can be generous with the pepper. I feel like pepper and orange tends to go together pretty well. All right, and now we're going to use our olive oil. So let's see, what did I say? 6 to 9 tablespoons. So the more orange juice you add, the less olive oil you will need, because that's going to increase the sweetness, and it's going to decrease the harsh acidity that you might have with the vinegar. So I've got about 4 tablespoons here. And then what we do is we're going to drizzle in really slow and whisk at the same time. And that's going to help emulsify the vinaigrette. So 4, yeah. A typical vinaigrette is going to use, like let's say you're doing balsamic, that you're usually going to need like 1/3 vinegar, or I should say 1 part vinegar and 3 parts oil. For this one, I doubt we're going to need as much oil because of the sweetness factor. So I'm going to add a little more. That was 4 tablespoons I just put in. Let's try 6. And then I'll taste it and see how it is. Okay, the best way to taste this is to dip a leaf. So I'm going to grab a couple leaves, do a little dip. And well, you get to hear me crunching. Okay, it's getting there. It's still a little bit acidic. I want it to be just a tad sweeter. So I'm going to stick in there just a little more of the honey. Use the back of my spoon there. And then once that mixes in, I'm going to add just a little bit more oil. And then I think we're about good to go. Maybe a little more salt too. Okay. Let's start switching hands here. That's probably another tablespoon I just put in there. I'm gonna try another leaf. That's good. That tastes a little more balanced. Let's see, here's my lid. Okay, pull out. Pears are done. And now we can mix it all up. Let's see, I need a bigger bowl. And I like to use large spoons when I'm mixing salad. So the first thing I'm going to do is mix the lettuce and the red onion together. And that's going to be the base of my salad. So I'm going to sprinkle in the amount of onions I think I need. This looks like it would serve about 2 people, given what I've got here. I'm going to give this one more little whisk. All right. I'm just going to kind of toss this around. While we're kind of thinking about citrus, I have a guest here with me. I hope she's here. Sarah Futterman-DeVries, who's with the Master Food Preservers. She's going to give a plug for a class that she's teaching in January. So I'm just going to put that out there. Sarah, are you here with us? I want to make sure you're on before
I see a Sarah in our participants.
Okay.
So do you want me to unmute Sarah, or is
not quite yet? I just wanted
later.
to kind of let everybody know that don't leave the class, because we want to hear what she's going to do in January. Okay, so there's my lettuce with my onions and the dressing, and now I'm going to just start to build up from there. So I'm going to get my pears. And of course, you know, these would be kind of sitting on the stove and cooling down for a little while, but we're going to pretend they've already cooled, but there is a little bit of steam happening here. Another way to cut the pears, if you want, is just to cut it in half and then make slices and then fan it out. I could probably show you that with one of the more ripe versions that I have over there. All right, so there's a few slices. And then I've got a little bit of goat cheese. kind of crumble around. And finally, my pecans. Another good addition to this would be some pomegranate seeds. I'm going to steal some from my other salad over here. Since we have them, may as well use them. Okay. I think everything's on there. Yep. Okay, so there's my little roasted honey and thyme glazed pear salad with all the goodies. All right, so yeah, before we go to any Q&A, I just wanted to have Sarah talk a little bit about the class that you're gonna do in January. It'll be part of kind of the same series, but she's with the Master Food Preservers, and it's gonna be about preserving citrus. So Sarah, take it away. I think you might be muted.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't. Hi. I'm Sarah. I'm with the Yellow and Solano Master Food Preservers. I am planning. I'm gathering a few things, but I do know that in January we're going to do a citrus marmalade, probably orange, but we'll see what fruit I can get my hands onto. I'm also going to show a variety of dehydrated products that can be done with oranges. There's quite a few things, and it's super easy. I'm just going to take some of the same fruit and show some ways to make the season last very easily. And everybody, I don't think it's hard, but you know, I'm watching Steph going, wow, she makes it look so easy. I'm also going to give you one tip for today with the pomegranates. One of the, we played with pomegranates too. We did all kinds of things with pomegranates. But if you want to have some pomegranate arrows for the year round, a very, very, very simple thing to do is to take your pomegranates, separate out the arrows, put them in a freezer container, and freeze them. And then whenever you want to add some pomegranate arrows to a salad, you go in with your spoon and you scoop them out. And they last very well for at least a year.
So Sarah, do you have to keep them separate? Because, you know, whenever I freeze stuff, I tend to put them in these little, this is like old baby food, you know, it's like an ice cube tray thing, or will you be able to scoop them out? I guess my question is, do they all stick together in the freezer?
They don't stick together. I'm not quite that fancy. I just put them in a little tub, just a little, like I don't have one in front of me, but like a little, you can even use little baggies like what I've got here. You can use things like if they aren't, I'm not going to do things, like a Ziploc, one of those little Ziploc containers. Those work well. That's what I do with mine. You can get fancy and put them in the little baby containers, and then you have a measured amount that you can just pop out at any time.
Mm-hmm. Great. Sarah or Allison, do either of you recall the date of the class? I know we had a date set. It is a Friday at 4 o'clock. I think, is it January 22?
It is January 22nd. I'm looking on the calendar.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if anyone is interested in learning some preservation techniques, and so Sarah, you said you're going to do a marmalade, and is that a canning process that you're going to?
That is going to be a water bath canning.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most beginner-friendly way of doing preserving. And it will be a low sugar marmalade.
Awesome. Thank you so much for speaking about that.